Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. This is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant of Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here I start off every show the same way because I want you to understand, as a salesperson, as a listener, what we're all about. And here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. Now, in case you're tuning into us live, or you're a repeat, offender and listener of the show, you'll see that I'm dressed up in my field gear because I am a chief sales sergeant. When I show up to work, I'm wearing my battle gear, ready to go out there on the battlefield of business. And that's really what we're all about here at Bulletproof Selling, taking the lessons from the battlefield and bringing them onto the field of business. Now, this is an interview-based show, so we always have a new guest on the show, sometimes repeat guests, but always talk about something different. And we've been able to have best-selling speakers, Hall of Fame speakers, authors, you name it, people that are leading multinational sales teams, people that are international, all on the show to help you replace hope with certainty and take those systems that we find most successful in sales or on the battlefield and bring them to bear in your pipeline so that you can get better results. Now, in every single show, we build a sales system with our guests so that you can actually take it in the field, use it no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. Now, although I do have a military background, U.S. Marine Corps, multiple combat tours, got to go to more than 24 countries studying what the very best of the best across all branches of the military were doing. Marine Corps, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, multinational forces, and studying how they're able to take those systems into combat and not just march in lockstep, not have to think, right? These folks are incredibly intelligent when they're out there, but they use systems so that they can adapt to an environment they know is going to change. Now, another place that incorporates a lot of great systems outside the military are the martial arts. So I've been practicing the martial arts for more than 20 years. I have a black belt in Aikido. I'm also a student of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And one thing that I know, no matter what class I'm walking into, they're going to teach me a system, a way of moving, a way of thinking, a way of being. And so when I ran across today's guest, McCowan, he runs an organization called the Sales Dojo. And in case you don't know, a dojo is the Japanese word for a place where training happens. Now, if we really dig into it, and I want to do this with Leah, it's got a unique meaning behind it as well. But we'll hold that for a little later in the show. I want to welcome to the show from the UK, the United Kingdom, all the way, we're going international here, folks, as we sometimes do, Mr. Leon McCowan. Welcome to Bulletproof Selling, sir.
Sean, I felt I should at least salute.
Oh, good salute. Well? I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. So,
was that an English one, or the American one's a bit more down, isn't it? Sorry.
So I've actually seen in England where the palm will come completely up. It's like a very old school British salute. In the United States military, it's like a knife blade. You're like whacking yourself in the skull because it's hardcore like that. But
we're nothing if not polite over here in England.
That is very true, actually. And come to think of it, in my experience, most of the folks I was able to work with from the British forces were British Royal Marines because they often would attach British Royal Marine elements into U.S. Marine elements. And I've never met a harder and smarter and more efficient group of individuals. So congrats for turning out some amazing troops there. But Leon, I don't want to talk about the military all day. I want to talk about the Sales Dojo because I'm so excited about the name that you came up with. So walk us through your journey in sales and why you chose the Sales Dojo to be your organization.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. Big fan of the show. Listen to lots of really cool people talking really cool things about sales. I'm really passionate about sales. It's something I've been doing for about 30 years and something I will always be a student of. So I'm always looking to listen and I'm always looking to learn and I'm always looking to pick up some hints and tips from people. So I'm really looking forward to having a chat to you. In terms of my journey into sales, my first job in sales was probably something that my mum's not very proud of, but I used to sell cigarettes to the local school kids. And I found
an entrepreneur, I love
found that being able to provide the supply that someone needed meant that I could earn quite a bit of money when I was 14, 15 in school. So that was my first foray into sales. I then decided I need to get a proper job, which I did for a few years. And then I lost the job because I was made redundant from a business. And I seen an advert in the local press which said, "Do you want to earn lots of money?" And I was like, yes, that's me. I like that.
Yes.
And I went for an interview at a marketing agency who was doing telemarketing, selling adverts on wall planners about 25, 26 years ago. And I was selling adverts for wall planners to local businesses for about 7 or 8 months. I found a card. Many years ago in the UK, before GDPR was a thing, they used to have something called the Thompson's Local. The Yellow Pages you may have heard of.
Yellow Pages, yep.
So Yellow Pages. So when you put an advert in the Yellow Pages as a small business, before GDPR, they used to sell your details to everybody who wanted to buy them. And I got a card for a small startup telecoms company, which had just started up in Preston. I phoned him to sell him an advert. He said, phone me on Tuesday. I phoned him on Tuesday, phone me Thursday, phone me. I was chasing him for about 6 to 8 weeks. I wasn't great at sales, but had really good systems. Before the CRM was an actual thing, I had a CRM on my desk. Monday calls, Monday afternoon, Tuesday, there was my script, there was my follow-up script. I had it all really well set out. Anyway, I was chasing this guy for about six to 8 weeks. He told me to come in, he'd buy an advert off me. I went in to see him and he offered me a job. And I was the first hire in a telecoms business that he started up about 22 years ago. Helped them guys to build and sell that business. They did it again. I helped them to build and sell that business, doing a sales role, sales director, sales manager, sales trainer, various sales roles in those businesses. And 12 years ago, one of the businesses that we were doing went bust. I bought the assets of that business and I started for myself. And I've been in telecoms myself in the business for the last 10 years. In those 20 years or so, I've trained, fired, coached, wanted to strangle about 1,000 salespeople.
Wow.
And about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was doing a talk to some other business owners on a management training course, I had to talk about what I liked about my career and what I enjoyed. And as I was delivering this talk, saying I really enjoyed when I was working with a salesperson, and after a year, we'd have a chat and they'd say, oh, thanks, all the work we've been doing. I've managed to get enough money together for my bonuses and I've been able to get myself out of debt, or I've been able to put my money down on a deposit for a house, or I've just bought a new pair of shoes. And literally, as I was delivering that talk, the sun came from behind the clouds out the window. It streamed through the window at me and it was like, oh, one of those. Mark Twain says the two most important moments in your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. And that was the day that I found out why. And I thought, I really need to do something which gets me helping salespeople, or non-salespeople, in fact, to sell more stuff. And that's why I started the Sales Dojo in 2017. So it's 5 years ago. And the idea was, when I train salespeople or work with salespeople in my career, when I was a sales manager, director, whatever, we often paid sales trainers and coaches to come in and do work. Some were good, some were bad, some were indifferent, but they all had a certain level of stuff. But the key thing with all of those things when we did it wasn't cheap. So if you want to get a sales trainer and you're going to pay £1,000 a day, £2,000 a day, $1,500 to $3,000 maybe. So with the Sales Dojo, what I wanted to do was I wanted to help the people who couldn't afford that, but wanted to get on in their sales career. So I started the Sales Dojo and we started doing some events. We started a website. We started doing some training, coaching. We started doing some live calling. We did something called a telemarketing takeover, where we got 50 local businesses in a room and everyone was doing their own version of telemarketing for their own business, like on a boiler room filmed type sales floor. And I found what I was brought to this planet for, which was to help people to get on and to earn more money by giving them confidence, hints, tips, all that kind of stuff. And I've been doing that for about 5 years now.
Now, why did you choose Sales Dojo instead of Sales Training Center or Sales Corporation?
So we've got two options for the answer. The first one is that I've been studying martial arts for 50 years under some of the Gracie brothers, but that would be untrue. The honest answer is one of my favorite films as a child was Karate Kid.
Yeah, great movie.
And I remember the scene in Karate Kid where Daniel goes and has something to eat. With his mom, and he looks in the dojo and they're all training and he doesn't go in because he feels like it's not for him. And that was the thinking behind it, because I wanted to create a dojo, which was a place where ninjas are built in dojos. So people go, when I looked into it a little bit deeper, when you go to a dojo, you've never finished. You're always training. It's a constant, you're always going, if you do martial arts yourself, you're a black belt and some young purple belt comes in and ties your knots and stuff like that in BJJ and all that kind of stuff. So the idea behind it was honestly because I love the film The Karate Kid.
Yeah. Great reason. I love it.
when I looked into it, it was very much all of the features and culture related stuff when it comes to martial arts, and particularly a dojo, meant that we could bring lots of, we don't do the training ourselves. What I do is I reach out to local trainers and coaches, and I get them in to come in and give us a little bit of information, a little bit of a video and stuff. So they're our sensei. And then everyone who comes along, obviously, is a student of sales. So that's where it came from.
That's amazing. That's
less
great.
romantic story.
I've got to I'll add something to that, and feel free to use this because I've been able to train martial arts both in the U.S. and in Japan. You know, where the word dojo came from. And I was surprised to learn that the word dojo in Japan doesn't just mean a place where people train. It's got a real subtle meaning as well, almost like a lot of Asian languages do, where one word could have multiple meanings depending on its context. And dojo, a lot of times in Japan, means a place of refinement, a place where you carve away the unnecessary. So you think like a beautiful wooden sculpture starts as a block of wood, and the sculptor has to move away the unessential in order to reveal the thing that's inside of it. And so when I think of myself going to a dojo, I train at 2 of them every single week. Each week I'm going in there to try to peel away the unnecessary, the unessential, the pieces that don't work. And obviously martial arts training does that, getting on the phone every day and calling, not just banging the phone down to see how many calls you can get, but figuring out how do I get better. And it's interestingly in the military, they do the same thing as well. So when we talk about bulletproof selling, the show's bulletproof selling, obviously. And what we mean by bulletproof is not that bullets bounce off of you, but that every single day when you're out there in the field, on the battlefield, you're thinking about how do I get better, because the environment is going to change. The people that we're going up against are getting smarter as well. They're not staying static. They're learning, they're growing. So if I'm not dedicated to continuous improvement, I may not make it home. That's why the military takes this refinement so seriously, the idea of living in a dojo. So with thousands of salespeople that you've trained, fired, hired, coached, and then, of course, all the people since you've been in the Sales Dojo. I'm curious to know, because you've seen a lot of salespeople at different stages of their careers, where do you see folks relying on hope more than they should in the field of sales?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's 2 things. I mean, we all talk about, we hope that this deal comes in. And the one thing that we used to see a lot was at one point we had about 60 reps on the road, and we based them. It was a few years ago, so we based them all from the office. So they'd all be in the office in the morning. We'd do the rah, let's go, let's all get on it. Here's what you need to know. Here's the latest figures on the networks or the handsets or whatever. And they'd go out, and then they'd come back into the office during the day if they didn't have meetings. And one of the things that they used to talk about all the time was they would say, how did the meeting go? And they would say something like, I got on really well with the guy. Oh yeah, we got on really well. The guy was really nice. And the hope was that they thought that because they were going to be friends with someone meant that they were going to become a client. And it's that what they would then do is, because they wanted to forge the relationship with the customer, they would become subservient. So they'd be saying that, they'd be interrupting people and say, I'm sorry to bother you. And
sorry to take up your time.
Hope you don't mind. And using that really rubbish language that they do when what you might do with a friend when you phone them and say, sorry to bother, but I'm having a crap day. Could you come round and have a pint with me? A glass of lager, whatever you guys do in the US. But it's just that subservient stuff of they would become attached and hope that was going to be a friendship come out of this thing. And then the friendship would mean that they'd have a better chance of becoming a client and picking up the business.
And how did you see that then manifest in their sales? Because I'm sure you and I both know salespeople that are really good at establishing relationships, but they also have really strong pipelines. So what's the difference in somebody that shows up trying to establish a relationship as their primary focus rather than learning the things they need to know to advance this thing through their pipeline?
Yeah. So one of the things that one of my mentors when I first started in sales management taught me was you tell more about what a salesperson doesn't sign than you do about what they do sign. And when he first told me that, I was thinking, I don't get that. What does that mean? And it was the ones where, they'd have 100 in the pipeline. 10 of them have said yes. 5 of them have said no. And the other 85 are maybes. And that was always the thing that you would see as maybes, or, possiblies, hopefullys, that kind of stuff. So it would manifest itself in not getting decisions. And the problem that came from was because they didn't want to get a decision if that meant the friendship was finished.
Ah,
So they'd be like, oh, I don't want to push him for a decision. I don't want to bother him because we get on so well. And we both like the same football team, or we like the same soccer team, or we both like the same American football team, whatever it is. So it would manifest itself in not getting decisions and being worried about getting a decision because they didn't want that to be the end of the really nice chat they had with someone over a cup of tea.
and so that, of course, means their sales cycles extended or put on hold indefinitely. Because if I'm never willing to ask for the sale because I'm never willing to hear no, that sale may never close. So then I'm curious to know then, Leon, the folks that got past this, because this might hold up 80% of salespeople, or we may all run into it at some point early in our careers. But the folks that were willing to do something different to move those sales deeper, how did they begin to get over this urge to, or this need to want to be friends first? What was the thing that changed inside of them that allowed them to do something differently?
So I think there would probably be a couple of things. One of them would be they started to earn some good money when they realized that friends don't give you money, but clients do.
Gotcha. That's a quote right there, by the way.
I'll let you have that one because I don't have a Twitter account. But yeah, that would be the one. I seen a post the other day, and I can't remember who I should credit this to, but yeses give you money, nos give you time, maybe give you nothing.
Mm.
And that's the key thing with it. And because the other side of that as well is when you become really friendly with a potential client, they tend to become quite friendly with you. And on that basis, they don't want to let you down.
Yeah.
So they don't want to say no. They want to say, I
right.
don't
And
know.
that sounds like I really can't make a decision today, but
Yeah.
maybe check with me next week, next
Let me
quarter.
think
Let me
about it.
ask my boss. Yeah.
Why don't you come in for a coffee next month and we'll catch up and have a chat?
Yeah. Yep, I've been there. I have been there. So I understand how that sounds and how it looks and how it feels too.
I've been there so many times myself. Whenever I've heard anybody say, we got on really well, I automatically went in my head back to the 250 times in a year that I said the same thing to my sales manager. Oh, we got on really well.
And so let's build a sales system around this, because I think the thing that salespeople are afraid of that end up in this mindset, and I've seen this happen to senior salespeople that have great established relationships because they've been doing the same business for 30 years with the same 20 or 30 or 200 clients. Those are good friends. They get invited to barbecues, to cookouts, to parties, to weddings, to graduations. And if I stop doing business with these people, I am sometimes putting the friendship at risk, because then they're going to feel bad about, oh, I didn't give the salesperson my business. No, I'm not available that weekend. Sorry. Can't come out on your boat to your private island or whatever the ask is, right? So if we're building a sales system to help people be willing to lose the sale in order to maintain the friendship, or the opposite, but willing to lose the friendship in order to advance the sale, let's build this into a system. So you know enough about bulletproof selling, but if someone's a first-time listener, we use this acronym TRIM because we're trimming hope away from a sales strategy. So if I want to make sure that I have a system that ensures that I don't lose a sale because I'm trying to maintain the friendship, what is the trigger element for this? Do I want to start building this in before I even reach out to the first prospect for the first time? Or is it something that comes into play after I've had that first meeting and even qualified this person as a buyer? Where should I trigger this system?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. It's a good question because the answer is both. So the trigger is interaction, making a call, going to send an email, starting on some outreach, revisiting a quote. All of those times that you're going to make an interaction with the client, that's the trigger for you to go, I need to do something here.
Okay. Gotcha. So whenever I'm having that interaction, trigger this system. Easy enough.
Yes.
But now the meat of this, I'm sure we're really going to dig in, is the R, making this thing repeatable. Because I don't want to hope I remember the steps that are engaged in this so I don't end up in the friend zone with a client. And that's something, do you have that term in Britain as well, ending up in the friend zone?
Yes, ended up in the friend zone or being ghosted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to end up in the friend zone. What are the steps that I need to make sure that I maintain throughout our interaction, throughout our conversation, and perhaps even afterwards? Probably most definitely after we say, all right, let's set next steps, and I go away. What's that step, that repeatable process? What do I need to be doing first, second, and third?
Yeah, so there's a few things with it. I think the key thing with the process is you don't want to be subservient. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're serving the customer. You want to be on a level and on a parallel with them. So how to make it repeatable is, everyone uses email signatures in this day and age, and it says, kind regards, Leon McCowan. Here's my name, my number, my email, my pager, and every other contact details you've got. What I do on an email is I start a line above kind regards, and it says, I will call you on this day at this time. If that doesn't work, hit return and let me know when works best. Otherwise, I'll speak to you then. So every time I send an email, if I don't edit that bit of information, it looks like I've sent a really crap email. So what that does is
Yeah.
it makes me go and edit that, and it makes me think I need to be in charge of this process. I don't want to be subservient and write something at the end that says something like, let me know what you think. Drop me a line if you've got any questions, all that kind of stuff. What I also do is, and I've pulled it off the wall because it is on the wall, is I've got a Post-it note which says, stop saying sorry.
That's a good one.
And that's next to the phone. And it stops me from saying, oh, I'm sorry to bother you, or hope you don't mind, or any of that stuff, because that puts you in the subservient mode when you're with a customer. So instead of doing that, what it makes me do is it makes me ring them and go, hey, it's Leon, how's things? Rather than, oh, look, I'm really sorry to bother you, because we're having a chat, rather than me being really subservient with them then. And then the last one is, and I don't have it with me, and I was shuffling around for it, but I've left a couple of things home. I've got a pen. So if I ever write anything with a pen, the pen says on it, stop saying sorry.
So really the steps 1, 2, and 3 are: don't be subservient, stop saying sorry. Those are great steps for any salesperson to have. And the interesting thing about this, Leon, and feel free to use this too, because we began developing this as a process and a system that we used in my company, and I've been teaching for a while as well, is that the idea of owning the next step is absolutely critical. Never let the enemy, so to speak, and never think of a prospect as the enemy. But what is the enemy is their lack of knowledge about what I have to sell, the value that it provides. That's the enemy. The enemy is everything else they had on their schedule that they think is more important than the conversation that we're about to have, the value I'm going to provide to them, their business, their personality. So that's what I think of. The enemy is not the prospect, but it's everything else that's in the way of this sale, all the barriers that I have to meet in the middle with the prospect and cross. But I never let the enemy control the next step. So never let their schedule control the next step. Like you said, you're the one who decides when you're going to reach out next. And what we began noticing is that if I, in my conversations, made a commitment, a promise, because you say in your email, I'll be reaching out to you Thursday at 3 or whatever that is. It's a piece of integrity. If I'm not on the phone Thursday at 3, I've made a promise to someone. And if I don't keep that promise, I've lost integrity. And if I can't maintain integrity in the sales process, what makes them think I'm going to be a good partner to deal with in business? And so the idea of making that promise also holds me to a standard where I have to deliver it. And that's something that's incredibly powerful. We've noticed this in building. You can open any script this way, Leon, where to open it up and say, I promised I was going to get in touch with you, Thursday at 3. Here I am. Let's have that chat. And then as you close it, I'll be back in touch with you via email, or I'll stop by your office, or we will meet for a pint at the pub to discuss business, whatever that is. But you maintain that next step. I absolutely love it. So we've got the trigger, making it repeatable. Now the I in trim is making this thing improvable, because I'd be willing to bet that although you might have started this way years ago, you're doing it a little differently today than you might have. Maybe that sticky note where it says, don't say sorry is a new element. That's one way to improve. But how would you recommend a salesperson improve this over the course of time to make sure that it is maintaining with Zoom calls, with virtual meetings, with a changing market, with inflation, with all the things that are happening in the field of sales? What do I need to do to improve?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things, obviously language changes a lot when you're in sales. So some people will phone up and say, sorry to, have you got 27 seconds? And that was quite good about 18 months ago. But now if you say that to someone, they'll be like, get off the phone. It's stuff like language always changes. What will also happen is, especially with, I'll call you on this date at this time. I'll drop you a line, so your language will change a little bit, and that'll get a better result. And also, you need to temper that a little bit as well for different kinds of clients. So some who are a bit, some who are D profile, who they're talking disc profile, who just want the information. They don't want a big, massive email, whereas someone who might be more interested in the information. So you can always improve it because you can see how it's going. So with the email one, for instance, if you send that 30 times and 15 of them reply and say, that's no good for me, that's not necessarily a loss. That just means That just means maybe your timing's got to be better. So
Yep.
maybe you need to look at, oh, right, maybe Tuesday mornings aren't good for my callbacks. Maybe I need to do them on a Friday. If you send the email and you don't make the calls, which is a cardinal sin, but if you don't, maybe your diary management needs to improve a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to set that time aside to make sure, no, I do my follow-ups on a Thursday afternoon and a Friday morning. So you can always improve the processes like that, definitely.
And something that I just thought of, someone would have to have a lot of courage to try it. But if you have cell phone access to a client or a prospect or a buyer, right, and a lot of us do because people will list their cell phones in their email signatures, to send a message saying, I'll call your cell phone at 7:30 a.m. to discuss, on Thursday. If I got that, I would respond immediately. I'd be like, 7:30 is no good. Give me a call at 10 or whatever that is, right? But every time that we get interaction from a prospect, that's a beautiful thing. And this is something that we learned in the military, to have multiple mission objectives, not just one primary one, which is all in, win or lose, 100% there, but to be able to say, if we can't achieve this objective, what does secondary success look like? And it might be just bringing everybody home from the mission. That's a great success. But for sales, we need to have multiple objectives as well. And closing the sale should be the primary, but the secondary might be setting that follow-up meeting at a specific time, specific date. Third one might just be having any interaction at all. Because in sales, if we have 300 people in our pipeline and we get 150 interactions in a day, somebody's moving forward, or they're getting kicked out of the pipeline, one or the other. Either is a good solution. So I love the idea of that, always improving and making sure that that's the case. Yeah, go ahead.
I think as well, so if you've got one as being getting a yes and two being the next interaction, maybe 1.5 is actually getting a no. And if you are really forward with the stuff that you do, you'll get more no's, and that's great.
Yeah.
Because everyone can't be a client, everyone can't be a customer. Your business simply can't. If you've got 100 prospects, you can't. Your business can't handle 100 new customers this week.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then to be able to ask, then, all right, well, if it's a no, why is it a no? Am I too expensive? Am I not demonstrating value? Am I not putting the right people in my pipeline? All of those can make you a better salesperson and make you more successful as well. So we've got the trigger, repeatable, improvable. Now the final piece in this, making it measurable. So if I'm taking the time even to look at a sticky note, maybe the system is as simple as looking at a sticky note or a note on my desktop computer or whatever that is that says, don't say sorry. Simple as that. It's going to take more time. I'm adding a second a day, 60 seconds every 60 days. I'm going to lose time over the course of time. If I'm getting that back in better sales and better conversations, it's great investment. But what should I be measuring here, Leon, to make sure that I'm not sacrificing the sale in favor of the friendship?
Yeah, so I think you're going to be measuring the amount of times you get the answer, because one of the things I think we make a mistake of is that we think our job is to get someone to buy something. Our job as a salesperson is to get people to make a decision and get them to make that decision fast. So if you've got 100 people in the top of your hopper and you end up with 60 after 6 weeks and you're spending lots of time on that 60, you'd actually be in a much better position to just have 20 really well qualified leads and opportunities and spend the time speaking to them. So one of the things that you'd be able to measure is that you get more decisions, and it's decisions rather than yeses is the key measure there. You may get a few more yeses, but what will happen is your pipeline will be a bit smaller, but it'll be more representative of what your actual opportunities are and not what you hope the opportunities are, and not what you're going to tell your sales manager that might possibly come in because you got on really well with them. The other thing you can measure as well is you'll get less ghosting. So you'll get less people not where you think, oh, that I've been ghosted and not coming back to me. So if you say I'm going to phone you at 7:30 a.m. on Thursday, and you ring at 7:30 a.m. on Thursday, they'll speak to you and say, look, I don't want to speak to you at this time. Stop calling me. And then you've got the decision.
Yes, exactly. So that's amazing. There's so many things to track there, but the idea is then to get this out of our heads and into something that is external, whether it's on a sheet of notebook paper, in a spreadsheet. But the idea being, now I can develop a flow, a pattern, a system with my prospects to make sure that I can still develop great relationships, but I'm not subservient to them. I'm not putting the relationship ahead of the mission that I have, which is to serve them in helping them make a decision on whether the product or service I have is going to be the best thing for their lives, their businesses right now. So, Leon, amazing stuff today. It's a sales system that I know I can begin using as well. Well, for anyone interested in the Sales Dojo, how do we learn more about you? Because you have, I don't know, like a bazillion followers on LinkedIn. Everybody's in your world. Well, how do I add myself to that world? How do I get deeper into what you do?
Yeah, sure. If you want to find out about Sales Dojo, it's www.thesalesdojo.com. Most of our events are in the north of England, but there's lots of content which goes out through all of the social media channels. And if you want to avoid my posts, then don't go on LinkedIn and don't find Leon McCowan.
There you go. Because if you go on LinkedIn and you follow him, you will see posts, which is, it's all great stuff, by the way. I've been cruising your LinkedIn profile. Brilliant
Thank
stuff.
you.
Everybody's got something to learn. So thanks so much for helping us out there, Leon. And for all of you listeners here at Bulletproof Selling, make sure you're following us as well on LinkedIn, on YouTube, where all of these great conversations are archived as resources for you. And of course, if you're listening, then you probably got this on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify. We're on all the podcast platforms, anywhere they can be found. And of course, for more resources, for more sales systems to help you replace hope with certainty to become more bulletproof, make sure you're checking those out at bulletproofselling.us. Well, Sean Rhodes here for Bulletproof Selling. It's been a pleasure serving with Leon McCowan of the Sales Dojo today. Thanks so much for serving the sales community, Leon. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.